Hello, beautiful soulmates. It's Whitney IY here, and you're welcome back again to this YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, you're highly welcome. Please do well to hit the subscribe button and also click on the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. So, in this video, we will be drafting a Victorian corset. Yes, I'll be showing you how to draft a Victorian corset straight from your basic bodice pattern. Yes, and also I'll be showing you how to achieve this conical shape at the side for a Victorian corset or for a cupped corset, whichever corset you're drafting. But just know we are drafting a Victorian corset with a conical shape. So if this is something you're willing to learn, if this is something you want to learn, then do well and keep watching, and also do not touch that dial. Now, these are some of the items I'll be making use of. I'll be making use of this Ankara fabric that is about 2 yards, and also I'll be making use of air stay, very important, and also the plastic boning. So I love making use of plastic boning because of how well it holds, especially when you're dealing with a big tummy. So plastic boning it is. Now, when it comes to drafting a corset, there is a step you need to know how to do very well before you can successfully be able to draft out a corset. Yes, you need to know how to draft out your basic bodice. It is very important. Like I will always say, from your basic bodice, you can achieve any style you want to achieve. You can achieve any form of drafting you want to achieve, be it advanced or not, you can achieve it. Just know how to draft your basic bodice correctly. So in this video, although I'll be drafting out the basic bodice, but I'll be very fast because this video is not for drafting the basic bodice. It is for how to draft out your Victorian corset with your conical shape, right? And if you still do not know how to draft out a basic bodice perfectly, then you need to perfect that aspect of your skill so that this Victorian corset won't look so tedious or confusing and all of that. So it will be very easy for you to understand. So I'll be drafting out the basic bodice first, but it's going to be very fast, like I earlier stated. Meanwhile, I have a very detailed explanatory video on how to draft out a basic bodice in case you want to go perfect your skill on that first before watching this Victorian corset. But if not, if you're already good with drafting out your basic bodice, then voila, let's dive right into it. So these are the items I'm making use of. I'm making use of the pattern paper, the pen, the rule, and the tape rule. So if you do not have a pattern paper, you can make use of a newspaper, a cardboard paper, or any large piece of paper that you have available to you. And these are the measurements taken for drafting out a Victorian corset. So the first step in drafting is to come down from the beginning of your paper by 1 inch, and like I earlier stated, we're drafting the basic bodice first, just that the basic bodice aspect is going to be very fast. So as always, come down from the beginning of the pattern paper by 1 inch, and I'll bring in my rule to connect the dots to get a straight line, and this line serves as the top line or the starting line. So it is on this starting line that I'm going to mark out the shoulder measurement after dividing it by 2. And the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 16 inches. So 16 divided by 2 gives me 8, and that is what I marked out here. Next, I'll go ahead and mark out the armhole depth. So to get your armhole depth, divide your round bust measurements by 6 plus 1.5. And for me, I got 8.3. That is what I marked out. So I'm marking out my shoulder measurement here just to make sure I get a straight line when connecting the armhole to the shoulder back like this. So now that I have the straight line, the next step is to divide the round bust measurement by 4 and mark it out. So the round bust measurement I'm working with is 41 divided by 4 gives me 10.25, and that is what I've marked out here. And I'll bring in my rule to connect this down to get a straight line. So this line is referred to as the chest line, right? Next is to mark out the neckline. So you can either use the regular 3 by 3 inches or get the neckline for that individual, specific neckline for that individual, by dividing the round bust measurement by 12 inches. So after dividing, I got 3.41, and that is what I marked out as the neck width and neck depth. And I'm connecting the neck width and neck depth to get this beautiful basic neckline. Next, on the shoulder, you come down by 1 inch like this, and you're going to connect this to the neck width to get that shoulder slant or slope. Like I would always explain, you know, our shoulder is not straight, it is quite slanted, so that is it for that. Next step is to mark out the shoulder to nipple measurement, and for me it is 11 inches, and that is what I'm marking out here, the shoulder to nipple measurement, and it is also referred to as the bust point. So after marking out, I'll bring in my rule to connect the dot as well to get a straight line like this. So this line is the bust point. Next step is to go ahead and mark out the shoulder to the under bust, that is shoulder to underneath the bust. And for me, I have 15 inches, so that is what I'm marking out. The shoulder to underneath the bust is 15 inches, as you can see. And I'll bring in my rule also to connect the dots to get a straight line like this. And this line is referred to as the under bust line. Next step is to mark out the front waist length. Like I would always say, for fitted outfits, the front waist length is different from the back waist length. So obviously a Victorian corset is a fitted outfit, so we have to impute the front waist length, and for me it's a 17.5. That is what I just marked out. So I'll go ahead and connect the dots to get a straight line like this, and this is the front waist length. Next is to mark out the hip depth or the hip line, and to mark that out, I marked out 8 inches from the waistline here. That is 8 inches from the front waistline. That is what I'm marking out. So for very short people, you can use 7 inches. For average height, you use 8 inches. For tall people, 9 inches. And for tall people, you use 10 inches. That is people that are tall. You understand what I'm trying to say? So this line is the hip line or the hip depth. Next step is to start marking out your bust pan. So divide the bust pan measurement by 2 and mark it out. That is the nipple to nipple measurement. So for me it is 8 divided by 2 gives me 4, and that is what I marked out on the bust point, on the under bust line, on the waistline, and also on the hip line. And I'll connect these dots as well to get a straight line like this. Now that I have this, next step is to go ahead and go in and out by ½ an inch on both sides of the waistline like this. ½ an inch, making it 1 inch. That is ½ inch on the right side, ½ inch on the left side. And from the bust point, you come down by 1 inch, and from the hip line, you go up by 2 inches. So right now, you bring in your rule and connect all these points together to get 2 triangles facing each other like this, or 2 triangles lying on top of each other like this. So this is the basic darts for a basic bodice. Next, I'll go ahead and divide my round waist measurement by 4 and add the 1 inch for the dart intake here. So the round waist measurement I'm working with is 34, divided by 4 gives me 8.5, plus the 1 inch gives me 9.5, and that is what I just marked out on the waistline. And I will connect this straight to the bust like this. Next, on the hip line, you divide the round hip measurement by 4 and mark it out. So the round hip measurement I'm working with is 43, divided by 4 gives me 10.75, and that is what I marked out here. So I'll just extend this line here to meet up with what I marked out. And I'll connect the hip measurement I marked out to the waistline like this. As at this point, the basic bodice pattern is almost ready, but it's just left with one thing, which is the bust dart. So remember I stated earlier on that the front waist length is different from the back waist length. It's quite longer. So to get your bust dart, you have to subtract your front waist length from your back waist length, and whatever you get, you mark it at the side here, and you connect it straight to the bust point. So my front waist length is 17.5 and my back waist length is 14 inches. 17.5 minus 14 inches gives me 3.5, and that is what I marked out at the side there and connected back to the bust point. Next step, to draw the armhole curve, get the midpoint of the armhole like this with your tape and fold over your tape like this to get the midpoint, or you divide whatever you get by 2 and you go ahead and mark it out here. After getting the midpoint, come in by 0.75 like this, and you go ahead and connect these 3 points together to get the armhole curve. And I'll be using a curve rule for this, but if you don't have a curve rule, you can make use of your hands to connect the dots to get the armhole curve. but just make sure you have a perfect curve, and that's just it. You have a perfect armhole curve. So right now the basic bodice pattern is completed, and it's time to bring in my pink pen to iterate this basic bodice pattern to get the Victorian corset. And the very first step in drafting out your corset is to draft out how long you want the corset to be. So you can either take the measurement on your client, how long they want the corset to be, or you can, I advise you come down by 6 inches or 5 inches or 5.5 inches from the front waist length to get the corset length. This way it gives you a moderate length of a corset that will be comfortable for your client to sit down with. I hope you do understand. So I'm coming down by 6 inches from the front waist length, and this will be the corset length. That is how long I want this Victorian corset to be for me. So just note that the longer your corset, the more uncomfortable it will be for your client to sit. Now that I have determined how long this Victorian corset is going to be, I'll go ahead and mark out the shoulder dart. So to get the shoulder dart, I'll get the midpoint of my shoulder like this and fold over my tape just to get the midpoint, and I'll mark it out. And I'll go ahead and bring in my rule to connect the midpoint to the bust point like this. So this line I am marking out is called the shoulder dart. So this is the shoulder dart line, and it is very important when drafting out a corset, any corset at all. Next step is to determine the over bust line, which is where the corset is going to start from. And for small busts, you can measure from the bust point to underneath the bust, and whatever you get, you mark it from the bust point upward like this. This works perfectly for small bust size, but for big bust size, it's advisable you go up by 2 inches from the chest line for modesty purpose. So going up by 2 inches from the chest line for big bust size helps with, avoiding cleavage reveal, exposing the bust. This gives some form of modesty for big bust size. But for small bust size, you can go up by 1 inch, 1.5 inch, or just measure from the bust point to under bust line, and whatever you get, you mark it from the bust point upward. So now you noted I stated earlier on that this dart here is for normal basic bodies. So for corset, the dart intake is 0.75 on both sides. For normal basic bodies, it is half an inch on both sides of the waistline. But for corset, be any type of corset, it is 0.75 on both sides. That is the dart intake for corset, 0.75 on both sides. And you go ahead and connect it back to the 1 inch below the bust point and the 2 inches above the hip line like this. So at this point, we now have the appropriate dart intake for a corset. Now, one thing makes a corset unique and different from every other outfit, and that is how it snatches the waist, meaning how it makes the waist look smaller. And to achieve this, you have to remove 2 or 3 inches from your actual waist measurement, and whatever you get will be your new waist measurement. And also note that if you subtract anything above 3 inches from your actual waist measurement, you might end up with a corset that will be very uncomfortable and might even snatch your breath away. So since my actual waist measurement is 34, I will subtract 2 inches from it, and 34 minus 2 gives me 32 inches, meaning 32 is now my new waist measurement. So I'll go ahead and divide it by 4, and whatever I get, I'll mark it out. So 32 divided by 4 gives me 8 inches. Now there are 2 ways to mark out your waist measurement on your waistline. You can either just measure from the center front here to the first dart leg. So since 32 divided by 4 gives me 8 inches, I will measure from the center front here to the first dart leg here, and whatever I get, I'll mark it out on the tape like this here. This is what I have, and then I'll continue from the second dart leg on that same spot that I marked out on the tape. So please watch. As you can see, I'll continue from where I stopped here on the tape and mark out the 8 inches. And the second method is I can just mark out the 8 inches plus the 1.5 dart intake the way normal measurements are being marked out. Now for corsets, there must be an under bust tightening just to hold the breast perfectly in place, and to do that you have to go out from your corset dart leg by 0.5 or 0.75 on both sides. So for me, I'll be going out by 0.5 0.5, and I will explain why. So I'll just go ahead and come out by 0.5. Please watch from the corset dart leg on the underbust line like this. And I'll bring in my rule and connect this to the waistline and also to the corset length. So I'll connect like this straight down. Just watch how my rule is placed. I'll connect to the waistline and to the corset length like this, and I'll repeat the same thing on the other side as well. Now if you're using 0.75 on both sides of the underbust as the underbust tightening, and you are getting exactly these lines that are being marked out, then you are on the right spot. But if your lines, once you're marking it out, is crossing over to the other side on your corset length, then that is an indicator that your underbust tightening is wrong. So you have to readjust to 0.5 inch as the underbust tightening. But if you made use of 0.75 and you are having exactly what was drawn out, these lines that were drawn out, then you are on the right spot. So over to the overbust now. We have to do the overbust tightening to make the corset stay firm on the chest. And to do the overbust tightening, if your corset has a yoke, then you go in and out by 0.75. But if it has no yoke, if there is no yoke on your corset, then you make use of 1 inch. So for this corset, there will be no yoke, so I'm coming out by 1 inch on both sides of my overbust line, because this corset has no yoke, like I earlier stated. And I'll connect this to the bust point using my rule like this. Once this is done, the next step is to connect this side of the underbust tightening to the overbust tightening line using the cuff part of my rule like this. So I'm connecting the underbust tightening on the center front to the overbust tightening line of the center front like this using the cuff part of my rule. And once I've done this, to connect that of the other side, I have to close the bust dart. And to close the bust dart, you have to open the main dart line. So I'll go ahead and bring in my scissors to do that. So please watch and pay close attention to these little tips and tricks. So right now, I'm just opening this part up, cutting this part out, just to be able to close the bust dart well. So I'll go ahead and pinch this part of the bust dart line like this. Please just watch, and I'll place it on the bust point line, and I'll bring in my paper tape to close it up. So at this point, it means I have closed the bust dart. So this is needed for me to connect the under bust tightening to the over bust tightening line on this other side. So I'll go ahead and bring in my rule to do the connecting, and I'll be using the curved part of my rule as well like this to connect the under bust tightening on this part to the over bust tightening line like this. Moving on, the next step is to go up by 1 inch on the side at the armhole. So I'll bring in my tape and go up by 1 inch, and this is to avoid the breast coming out at the side. It is for the cloth, the corset to perfectly hold the breast at the side. So I'll go ahead and connect this back to the armhole, and this is mostly done for busty ladies, but for bust of size 34, you can maintain your normal armhole. So right now, I'll go ahead and connect this to the over bust. First, I have to draw the over bust tie line, and to do that, I have to close the shoulder dart by pinching one part of the over bust tightening line and placing it on the other side of the over bust tightening line like this. And then I'll bring in my curved rule to draw out the over bust tie line. So you can draw any style line you want. You can draw your sweetheart style line or a straight line, depending on how you want the over bust to be. So I just want a little bit of sweetheart, something that does not expose the bust, and that's why I just stopped few inches above the chest line, about 0.25 inch above the chest line, like this. As you can see, this is a little bit of sweetheart, and I will connect this other side to the new armhole. That is the 1 inch I came up with from the armhole, the original armhole. So this is it, guys. The overbust tie line is set and ready to go. So right now I'll bring in my scissors and cut this out. Please watch. So now that I have my overbust tie line, I'll just go ahead and cut it out like this. So this is the yoke. So you just cut the armhole of the yoke. That is if you're making use of the yoke. But for me, I'm not making use of the yoke. I'm just showing you how to cut the yoke. So this is it, and this is the yoke. In case you're making use of the yoke, you can use this to cut out your nude net or whatever you're using as the yoke. Next, at this point, and you can see that the sides are not aligning, so we have to make sure that the sides align to get a perfect corset. And to do that, you have to divide the round bust measurement by 4 and mark it out using the method I taught earlier on when marking out the new waist measurement. So the round bust measurement I'm working with is 41 divided by 4 gives me 10.25. So I'll go ahead and bring in my tape, and I'll measure from the center front to the first dart leg here and mark whatever I got on the tape. And then I will go over from what I got on the tape. I'll place it on the second dart line and mark out the 10.25 on the bust point line, obviously. Then for the chest line, I'll divide my round over bust measurement by 4, and whatever I get, I'll also mark it out using the same method of imputing measurements that I taught earlier on. So I will measure from the center front to the first dart line like this, and whatever I get, I'll mark it out on the tape, and I will continue from what I marked out on the tape. I'll place it on the second dart line like this, and I will mark out my round over bust measurement divided by 4 here. Right now, I'll bring in my rule and connect from the waist to the bust measurement that I just marked out and to the over bust line or to the new armhole like this to get a perfect size. So make sure you connect from the new waist line, please, the new waist measurements, yes, to the measurements, to the bust measurements and to the over bust measurements that was marked out, or straight down to the armhole, just to get the perfect size that aligns. Now that this is done, the next step is to create those slanted dart lines that are attributes of a Victorian corset. You know, one thing about Victorian corset is they have lots of dart lines. So in order to create them, I'll go ahead and cut out the dart here on the center front like this. Please just watch. I'll cut this dart out on the center front, and I will use it to cover the dart here. And I will make sure that the under bust line and the waist length aligns with each other, are on point. And I'll use my paper tape to hold them in place. So please note that I'm currently holding an online class on corsets. So if you feel left out even after this video, or you still do not know how to make a perfect corset, no matter how hard you've tried to learn, then this class is for you. So you can hit me up on my email or on Facebook, and the details are displayed on the screen. And in this class, you will have an in-depth knowledge on everything that has to do with corset. I will make sure you understand it is by first. So see you in my class. So now that I have held it with paper tape, the first thing I would want to do is to attend to the conical shape. Let's get that conical shape that we're aiming for. So for the conical shape, you can go up by either 1.5 inch or 2 inches at the side like this. So go up by 1.5 inch and connect it back to the corset length. You can use any style line you want. You can do a normal curve like this or a normal curve like this, whatever you're aiming for your corset, you know, draw out that style line. If you are creating a style line, then make sure you draw that particular style line. If you want to be creative with your style line, no problem. Then for the conical shape, you go out by 2 inches. You can go out by even 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches, depending on how wide you want that conical shape to be. And you connect from the waistline to whatever you went out with on the side. So I'll connect from the waistline to the 2 inches I went out with. I don't want this conical shape to be very wide. I just want a moderate one. So at this point, I'll go ahead and draw out my desired style line for the hem. So you can even make your conical shape longer by, bringing down the length of this curved part, that is this conical shape, what we extended by 2 inches. If you're extending yours by 3 inches, so it depends on what you want. If you want it wider, you want it longer, it all depends on you. But for me, I'm okay with this moderate size of the conical shape. So next, I'm going to go ahead and draw the slanted lines for the Victorian corset, because that is one attribute of a Victorian corset. And to do that, I will go in by 1.5 inch from the center front like this. You can go in by 2 inches or 1 inch, but I went in by 1.5 inch, and I'll connect this to the under bust point like this to get that slanted line that is a beautiful attribute of a Victorian corset. And I'll go ahead and bring in my scissors to cut it out like this. So I'll just use my scissors to cut this out. So at this point, we have the piece 1 of the Victorian corset ready. So I'll just bring in my pen to label this piece 1 so that it's not difficult to indicate. So next step, I'll go ahead and cut out the remaining darts here. So please watch how this is being cut out. So I'm just going to cut out these remaining darts. I'll cut it out like this. Please just watch. One thing about corsets is not difficult. You just have to practice. At least if you practice up to like 3 or 4 times, you should be good with it. So right now you can see it's slanted and the conical shape is given, but then I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with this style line at the end. I just think I need to be a little dramatic with the style lines. So I'm just trying to create a little bit of drama at this conical shape here. So like I stated, you can make your conical shape longer. You can make it wider depending on how exaggerated and how dramatic you want it to be. So that is just it. So I'll go ahead and cut like this. Just go ahead and cut the hem out so that you can see I'm having a nice shape. And I'll go ahead and cut out this side as well like this. Just cut it out. So if you want a wider conical shape, it's for you to increase it. If you want a longer conical shape, it's for you to increase it. That's just the whole truth. And whatever you do, you connect it back to the hem. And for the wideness, you connect it back to the waist. So right now, I'm going to draw out another slanted dart line for this Victorian corset. And that will do it for me. But if you want more slanted dart lines than this one, you want more, no problem. You can keep drawing out more dart lines, but just know that the more your dart lines, the more it will be very difficult or quite difficult for you to join your Victorian corsets together. So I think the lesser the dart lines, the better it is, but whichever rocks your boat, no problem. So this is piece 2 and the other side is piece 3, and I'll bring in my scissors to cut this open. So I'll bring in my scissors to cut like this. And I'll just cut this out like this. So if you want more dart lines, you can draw out more dart lines, but I think this is okay. Yes, this 3 piece is okay. If you draw out more dart lines, you might have more than this 3 piece, but just know that joining them together would be more tedious for you. So right now the front pattern is ready, and this is it with the yoke. So for the allowances, just leave 0.75 inch all round and half an inch allowance at the shoulder, the neck and the armhole. So now that the front pattern is ready, I'll go ahead and put this piece together. I do not need a yoke, so I'll just put these 3 pieces together and pin them together. Moving on, I'll bring in a fresh pattern paper to draft out the back pattern. And please, sorry, the way this pattern paper is looking all ruffled. It's due to the way I kept it. So as usual, I'm going to come down from the beginning of my pattern paper by 1 inch just to get our top line or starting line. So I'm coming down by 1 inch, and I'll bring in my rule to connect the dots to get a straight line like this. Now that I have the straight line, the next step is to go ahead and divide my shoulder measurement by 2 and mark it out. So the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 16 divided by 2 gives me 8, and that is what I've marked out. Next, I'll go ahead and mark out the armhole depth, and like I earlier stated, to get the armhole depth, divide your round bust measurement by 6 plus 1.5. So I'm just making sure that I get a straight line while connecting this armhole depth to the shoulder. So now that I have this, the next step is to go ahead and mark out the neckline. So the neck width I'm working with is 3.41, and the standard neck depth for a back pattern is 1 inch, and that is what I just marked out, 1 inch. So I'll connect the neck width to the neck depth. So remember that the neck width of the front and the neck width of the back has to be the same thing. The only thing that the neck depth of the back is 1 inch standard for everybody. So next, I came down by 1 inch on the shoulder, and I'm connecting this back to the neck width to get that shoulder slant or slope. Next step, I divided my round bust measurement by 4, and I'm marking it out here. So after marking it out, I'll bring in my rule to connect straight down like this. So this is just like me drafting out the basic bodice for the back pattern as well. So this is the chest line. So next step, I'll go ahead and mark out the back waist length. So remember, I always said the back waist length and the front waist length are different. So my back waist length is 14 inches. So I made mistake marking out 15 inches, which I later corrected. So my back waist length is 14 inches. So 14 inches. And I'll go ahead and connect the dots to get a straight line. So take note, I corrected it back and marked out my exact back waist length, which is 14 inches. So next step is to mark out the hip line. So from the back waist length, you mark out your hip line or hip depth. And for me, it is 8 inches. And that is what is being marked out here, like this. And I'll bring in my rule to connect the dots to get a straight line like this. And after doing this, this is the hip length or hip depth. Then the next step is to carry out the back tightening. So going by 0.75 on the waistline at the center back and connect to the neck width and also to the hip line. So this is just to avoid any form of budging on your corset center back, is to make your center back of your corset lay down perfectly on your back. Please take note that we are drafting the basic bodice for the back pattern. This is just the basic bodice for the back pattern. So on the waistline, you divide your round waist measurement by 4 plus 1 inch for that intake. So my round waist measurement is 34, divided by 4 gives me 8.625, plus 1 inch for that intake gives me 9.625. So I'll be marking it from this back tightening, which is the new center back. So please watch how my tape was placed, and I've marked it out. And I'll bring in my rule to connect this to the bust measurement like this on the chest line. Next is to get the armhole curve for the back. So I'll go ahead and get the midpoint of this armhole here. I'll get the midpoint by folding my tape over and marking it out. And I'll go in from the midpoint by 0.5 inch, and I'll connect these 3 points together. So if you know how to draft a basic bodice, then this should not be an issue for you. It should be something you already know about. So I've connected the 3 points together, and I have the armhole curve. It's time to begin the little alterations to get the Victorian corset. So I'll come down by 0.5 inch here at the center back, and also 0.5 inch here at the center back. Now this is to carry out the 100% back tightening, because I want this corset to perfectly sit well on my body, especially at the back. So I'll connect these 2 points to this waist measurement here like this. So whether it's corset or strapless, as far as it is something that has no yoke, then you need the 100% back tightening to make the outfit, hold your body well at the back, to eliminate any form of bulging, as in even if it's little bulging. This totally eliminates every form of bulging from your back pattern. So right now, go ahead and close up this 100% back tightening by pinching one side of the lines, the dark lines, and placing it on the other line and using my paper tape to hold it down. So this tightening that was done is called the 100% tightening. And to do the 100% tightening, you have to do the 50% tightening, back tightening, which is going in on your center back by 0.75 on your waistline, before you now carry this other tightening out, making it 100% back tightening. I hope you do understand, and I hope I'm not confusing you much. If there's any question, just ask me in the comment section and I'll try my possible best to reply to you, to answer. So I'm closing it right now, and I'll bring in my paper tape like I earlier stated to hold this down. Now that I've sorted that issue out, next is to mark out the length of the corset, and like I did for the front pattern, I came down from the back waist length by 6 inches like this. I came down from the front waist length by 6 inches. So I'm repeating that same 6 inches from the back waist length like this to get the corset length. And I'll go ahead and bring in my rule to connect the dots to get a straight line like this. Now that I have this is the corset length. So the next step right now, I'm just going to extend this hip line further, because I'll be dividing the round hip measurement by 4 and marking it out on this hip line. So the round hip measurement I'm working with is 43 divided by 4 gives me 10.75, and that is what I've marked out. And I will connect this down to the waistline. Once this is done, the next step is to mark out the dart line by dividing the nipple to nipple measurement by 2. So the nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with is 8 inches divided by 2 gives me 4 inches, and that is what I marked out on the waistline. Then on the chest line I marked out 4.75, and on the corset length I mark out 4.75 so that the dart line will be even. And how I got the 4.75 is that I added the back tightening, which is 0.75, to the 4 inches to get the 4.75, which I marked out on the chest line and on the corset length. And I'm connecting these 3 points together to get a quite slanted line. Then on the waistline, I went out by half an inch here and came in by half an inch here. And then I'll connect this half an inch to the chest line like this, and also connect the other half an inch to the chest line like this. And I will also connect this half an inch to the corset length like this, and repeat the same thing on the other side as well. So now that I have this, the corset is almost ready. But then we need to measure out the new waist measurement. So remember that my new waist measurement is 32. So 32 divided by 4 gives me 8, and that is what I've marked out. So I'll connect this 8 inches back to the bust measurements and back to the hip measurements like this. Now, if you're observant, you will see that we didn't make use of the 0.75 corset dart intake for the back pattern, because it is not necessary at all. Just make use of the regular dart intake. Now on the armhole, I'll go up by 1 inch at the side here. Same thing I did for the front pattern. So I'll reconnect it back to the side like this. And then I'll go ahead and connect this to the center back using a slanted line. And to get that slanted line, I'll come down by 1 inch from the chest line like this. If you want the slanted line deeper, you can come down by 2 inches from your chest line, but I think 1 inch is okay and moderate. And I will connect from this 1 inch I went up with on the armhole to the 1 inch I came down with on the chest line. So you can use any style line you want. You can do a curve, you can just do a straight style line if you don't want a slanted style line. Whatever you want, go for it. Whatever you crave for, go for it. Be creative with it. So this is it, guys. Next step is to just mark out a style line for your eyelet stand or loop stand that is at the center back. So it can be any style line at all. It can be a slanted line, whichever you want it, however you want it, go for it. I think this style line for eyelet stand is also beautiful. This slanted style line. Let me use my pen to draw broken lines. I hope you can see it. To mark out broken lines, I mean. And this style line is also very beautiful for your eyelet stand, for your center back. You can also make use of a straight line, whatever you want, no problem. But for me, I'm just playing around. I want something new. I want to see how it comes out. Take note that if you go more than 2 inches from your center back while creating this style line, you might end up having a lot of space on your center back after lacing your corset. But if you go in by 1 inch, the space on your center back after lacing your corset won't be much. It won't be that exposed, but it depends on what you want. So for me, I'm just playing around with my numbers at the center back for the eyelet stand. I'm just trying to see if I can get a nice curve. So this is me playing around with it, as you can see. So there's nothing harmful in trying something new. So this is how I just want my corset stand, my eyelet stand, sorry, to be. So now it's time to, mark out the conical shape. So firstly, I'll go up by 1.5 inch on the side here. And then from this 1.5 inch, I'm just going to connect it back to the corset length using a nice curve. But firstly, I'm going to come down here by 1 inch. And I'm just trying to recreate I'm trying to recreate a beautiful style line for the aim of my back pattern for the corset. So that's what I'm just trying to do, as you can see. And I'll connect this back to the 1.5 inch that I came up with at the side here. So please just watch. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm just playing with my style lines. As you can see, if I'm not okay with it, so just try to readjust because of what I'm aiming for in my head. So that's why I'm just playing around with the style lines. Yes, because I'm aiming for something. I'm gunning for something. I'm gunning for a particular style line. So this is it, guys. And then for the conical shape, I'll go out by 2 inches. And after going out by 2 inches, I'll connect this to the waist. So I wanted to use my curve rule, but I decided to bring in my front pattern and use exactly the shape I have for the conical shape on my front pattern. So I just had to bring in the front pattern to play this role of connecting the curve from the waist to the 2 inches I came out with. So you can see, I just want to have this exact curve. I don't want to have something different. So I'm just placing it correctly on the waist and, connecting back to the 2 inches. So like I earlier stated, if you want your conical shape wider than this, you can go out by 2 inches, 3 inches, 5 inches. But if you also want it longer than this, no problem. You can increase the length as well. So this is it. My pattern is almost ready, but I'm just still trying to get a perfect aim style line for the back pattern of my corset. I'm just trying to get something good, something I am okay with, a style line I am okay with, that is desirable to me. So that is it, guys. So if you enjoyed this video and if this video was helpful to you, please do well to hit the subscribe button, and also don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you have any questions, you can drop your question on the comment section and I'll try as much as possible to respond to you. If you also want to make more inquiries about the Corset online class, I'll be dropping the link to the WhatsApp number solely for this class, or the emails and the Facebook where you can hit me up on the screen, to be displayed on the screen. So guys, I'm cutting out the pattern. As you can see, you can also go ahead and open up the dart. I didn't get to open up the dart. I didn't get to cut out the dart for the back pattern because I'm managing my fabric because of the kind of sleeve I wanted for it. But for a perfect Victorian corset for the back pattern, make sure you you cut out the dart for the back pattern. Yes. Now this video was already getting super long, and I wanted everyone to understand every aspect of this video so well, so I had to put this video into two. So this is the drafting part of this Victorian corset. So if you want to see the sewing part of this Victorian corset, the link will be on the description box. In short, I might get to pin it on the comment section, so you go ahead and watch how this whole outfit was put together, how the pattern was used to cut out the fabric, and every little details that has to do with putting this outfit together, including how to make the rose flower that I used for the sleeve. So guys, I'll see you on my next video. I love you guys. And also, I am so in love with this outfit. It's given like set with conical shapes, fits all body types.